Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. My name is Mike Ellis. I'm the Global Vice President for Zalaris Consulting, and I have the pleasure today of taking you through a topic that I find very interesting and very intriguing right now, topic of choice, I think, for hundreds of SAP customers around the world. And that's really looking at what is the next horizon for SAP on-premise users, and in essence, looking at migrating to the cloud. So for today, what I'd like to take us through is firstly having a look at the current state of play. So, where are we currently at? Then looking at demystifying these upgrade paths. There's been a number of different blogs, webinars. There's a lot of online documentation around what is available, how should we get there, all that kind of stuff. So, I'd like to take the opportunity to take you through what we believe is the view there. Then really looking at what are the real benefits of moving to the cloud. And then looking at what tools and solutions will help with that move, because it's quite a complex, confusing transaction if you're not familiar with it. And we believe that there are tools and solutions out there that can alleviate that complexity. And lastly, then looking at sort of what we can do now to prepare. I encourage everyone to submit questions as we go through. And happy to take questions at the end and answer them as we go through. Okay, so current state of play, and this was quite an interesting statistic for me. Basically, 37% of current SAP users relying on legacy ECC have bought or subscribed to licenses to start their transition to the cloud. Now that was accurate as of the end of Q4 2024. And look, that's quite a high number to start with, but what is an equally high number is the difference of the users who have not actually made the start to that transition, who haven't bought licenses yet or not. Got me thinking about, okay, why would people not be moving just yet, or why haven't they made that jump? And we kind of looked at it and we thought, okay, there's really 8 sort of main categories that we found as barriers that were being seen to stop those migrations, i.e. why aren't clients adopting the cloud solutions? So the first, really, plain and simple, stating the obvious, obviously cost concerns are a big number. There's a high initial investment typically required in terms of migrating large and complex SAP landscapes. That can be significant. And there's also then sort of an unclear ROI based on those cost concerns. So there's difficulty in justifying cloud migration sort of without clear financial benefits, or reducing your total sort of cost of ownership type calculations there. Complexity and risk. Obviously, there's business disruptions, fear of downtime or interruptions in critical sort of business processes during that migration. And often there's complexity around integration landscapes that needs to be looked at and reviewed and updated. Data security and compliance, big topic of choice around the world in terms of data security. So privacy concerns over storing that sort of sensitive data in the cloud. I think that we've come a long way in terms of that around the world, but it still is a key concern of many different users around the world. And then obviously compliance regulations, so requirements like GDPR or industry-specific laws do sometimes hinder that migration process. Customization and control. Currently, a lot of on-prem systems do have a lot of customization or a lot of control in terms of what you can and can't do in the systems. And obviously the cloud, in particular SAP's cloud offerings, do have more standardized processes and limited flexibility sort of compared to your on-prem setups. There's obviously some pros and cons around that. The big sort of pro typically is that if you take a leading practice process, you can benefit from innovation as systems are upgraded, but that then obviously leads to less control or a perceived loss of direct control over sort of your infrastructure management and updates. Legacy systems and technical debt are a big factor as well. So outdated infrastructure, making migration more challenging and costly. And again, sort of heavily customized applications, do form part of that technical debt. Lack of internal expertise, and there is a skills gap out there that is being sort of accordioned as well as we move towards some of these hard dates that are out there. That does effectively mean that there's typically insufficient internal knowledge or resources that are there to manage the cloud infrastructure and cloud-based applications. And also that does then sort of throw up a change management challenge. Resistance is due to sort of unfamiliarity with the cloud technologies and those processes. Potentially performance and latency concerns, especially depending on where the cloud server is hosted, depending on geography and whatnot. So there are typically some concerns, especially for global organizations with distributed operations and remote locations. And lastly, just a concern about vendor lock-in. Obviously, if you're going into the cloud with a provider like SAP, sometimes there is concern about becoming overly dependent on cloud service providers with limited options for switching vendors later on. Obviously, if the solution works well, then maybe that's not so much of an issue. All right, so a couple of other interesting statistics. 34%, is poorer, incomplete data that is coming into the payroll office. That's a big risk that individuals are seeing, for their payroll operation, and then also 20.5% are also saying that upgrading technology is a big risk that they're concerned about. I think that's a concern regardless of where you are in the world, and it's important to make sure that you've got a transition that's risk-free or risk-averse, let's say, and planned out in a meticulous manner. So just some interesting stats to throw out there in terms of why people potentially are not necessarily wanting to jump up into the cloud straight away. Some of the other questions that are out there is, look, I've got until 2027 or even 2030. So what's the rush? And look, that's not necessarily the truth around the world, right? So not a lot of people know this, but there are actually versions of SAP that are end of life this year. And that's anyone who's running sort of your ECC versions, EHP 1 to 5, or your S4 HANA compatibility packs. So they are actually end of maintenance, end of life as of this year. That's a date that is hard and is coming quite quickly. So if you're not in a process of moving right now, you probably need to have to look at doing that quite quickly. You then get to, if you're on EHP 6, 7 or 8 under the SAP Business Suite, yes, you do have till 2027 on the current sort of mainstream support, with a potential to move to extended maintenance till 2030. Now that obviously means potentially more fees to get to that extended maintenance, but you do have to the year 2030 in that situation. And then you've got certain individuals that have moved already to HCM for S4 HANA, or H4S4 as it's commonly called. And that is supported up until the end of 2040. Now, all of those are considered on-premise from an SAP perspective, even if you do host that in the cloud with your own provider and your own servers, they are considered on-premise setups. Now, if we look at specifically the cloud, there is the SAP HCM Private Cloud Edition, or PCE, or RISE as it's commonly referred to. That does take you out to 2040 as well. And lastly, SAP SuccessFactors, or ECP, that is extended on ad infinitum, as that's really the go forward cloud solution from SAP. Now, a number of people have made comments like, didn't SAP just extend this to 2033? And no, they haven't. So what they have introduced is this concept of the private edition transition option. And look, those details are still light on. They're going to be published this year or confirmed towards the end of this year. I've put a QR code up there so you can scan that, and that will take you straight to the relevant update site to keep abreast of when those changes are published. But what SAP have indicated that it is only for large complex SAP clients. It's not going to support the full scope, and that it does require that a RISE solution is also subscribed to. And I believe from memory, the actual SKU from SAP to subscribe to that private edition or to enable that private edition transition option is only going to become available in 2028. So a fair while away, and something that you have to weigh up. What is the risk of waiting that long to be able to move to it? So no, they haven't extended to 2033. Those dates that I mentioned previously, 2027 and 2030, are still the relevant dates for you to keep an eye on if you're in a current on-premise solution. Okay, so let's have a look at demystifying some of those upgrade paths, right? So, what are my upgrade options? So on the screen here, this is your typical current state where you've got time and payroll and core HR on ECC or SAP Business Suite. So if we look at option 1, which is to move in one single step to the cloud, and that's effectively taking SuccessFactors for the entire HCM scope, and S4HANA Cloud Public Edition for your ERP setup if you are an ERP user. Now that's obviously using SuccessFactors for core HR, time, payroll, talent recruitment, onboarding and learning, and is a full single step to get up into the cloud. Option 2 is really then looking at moving to the cloud for core HR, learning, recruitment, talent, but leaving time and payroll on H4S4. And you can see over here in this situation, the ERP that you would likely be leveraging is the S4HANA Private Cloud Edition, as opposed to Public Cloud Edition, which is that full cloud option. And another sort of version of this is to effectively leave core HR, time and payroll on H4S4 and just leverage your talent on the cloud. Again, over here, your ERP would be the Private Cloud Edition, SAP S4HANA Private Cloud Edition. Now, just to call this out, really the two options on the right-hand side are effectively stepping stones before moving to the full suite SAP SuccessFactors solution, right? And it really depends on where your core ERP sort of maturity currently lies. So that sort of middle ground there, that option 2, does sort of give you the middle ground between getting the benefits of cloud solutions and managing the pace of change, so moving up to core HR, but leaving time and payroll on-prem. And really that option 3 on the right-hand side is to look at, that's more of an ERP-led motion to the private cloud. So in this situation, what you're looking at is focusing on moving ERP and core HR and time payroll up into S4HANA while you're taking advantage of the SuccessFactors stack for learning, recruitment and talent. Now, the important thing here is that they are stepping stones. The final end vision that SAP has is for everyone to be on the full cloud, and that's really that left-hand side option there, which is that sort of, as I mentioned, core HR, payroll, time, talent, recruitment, onboarding, learning, all up in the cloud, and leveraging S4HANA Cloud Public Edition for your ERP stack. If we focus on this in a more detailed view, right? If we look at that option 1 there, where we look at full cloud stack for HCM, And that's really looking at sort of payroll, core HR, analytics, talent, work zone, all of those modules, upgrading that at the current, in one step up into the cloud, and leveraging S/4HANA for your ERP. We then look at that sort of core hybrid view, that sort of second view where we're leaving payroll and time in the on-premise or the H4S4 world, and we're leveraging core HR and everything above up into the cloud. And then lastly, that sort of ERP-led play where we're leaving core HR sort of as part of that S/4HANA piece, and using a talent hybrid, using your talent up into the cloud there. Okay, so that's it all on one page. Obviously, the ideal end state is that cloud on the left-hand side, the full cloud solution, and you've got your core hybrid and your talent hybrid as stepping stones, as we mentioned on that previous slide. All right, now you can see over here that time and attendance is still, there's a slightly different color there, and that's really because from a time perspective, there are a couple of options that we can leverage in terms of full cloud from a time perspective. So if we look at the core base solution of Employee Central Time Off, that's really where you're focusing on absence management, and that's it. So if there's no complexity within your workforce, it's just leave management or absence management that you're looking to support, that works perfectly well. You then step up into the next level of complexity where you're looking at simple time evaluation, and SAP's chosen solution there is SAP Time Tracking, and obviously that is sits on top of Employee Central. If you then have complex time scenarios, the prescribed option from SAP currently is SAP Time and Attendance by Workforce Software. Now, obviously, there's probably a watch this space given the fact that ADP has acquired WFS, and there's probably a question around, okay, is that going to remain as the solution moving forward? There's been no statements either way on that, but something that's probably worth keeping an eye on if you're looking to move that way. And really the last option, and again, one of the great benefits of SAP is the SAP Store. And there are a number of third-party SAP Store-based solutions that you can actually look at depending on your specific scenarios. We've got a great relationship with a company called WorkAxle, SAP Store partner as well. And they've got a native integration into SAP SuccessFactors as well. So lots of solutions like that. We're liking WorkAxle for the complexity that they handle. Okay. Let's have a look at what are the real benefits of moving to the cloud. So why is moving payroll and time to SuccessFactors important? So firstly, fragmented payroll models do result in high operational complexity, poor customer experience, high cost, and increased error rates, right? There's also a lack of insight into policy deviations, overtime or excessive pay results that do lead to legal issues, expensive manual corrections, and employee frustration. I think there are stats out there that call out things like an employee will start looking for a new job if they receive one incorrect pay. I think it's 25% of employees start to do it at that point in time. And then if they experience two incorrect pays, that number pops up to, I think, about 49%. So some interesting stats there. So obviously making sure your payroll accuracy is key to keeping your employees engaged and happy. Payroll data verification in on-prem systems is typically manual, often requiring spreadsheets. It's cumbersome, time-consuming, without full confidence of your accuracy and compliance. And really, employee dissatisfaction, is typically there without the ability to update data such as your bank accounts or conveniently viewing your pay statements, so on and so forth, which it should be par for the course nowadays, but is hard to implement on an on-prem world. So, why do you want to look to move to payroll in time, to SuccessFactors? Firstly, looking at, you want agility to run payroll from anywhere. You want the agility to quickly reclassify and report workers. You want to automate more of your payroll and operate as efficiently as possible. And you want to be able to react rapidly to changing legislation. And that's something that we've seen over the last couple of years as governments try to rebalance sort of the economy and support employees, changing tax scales, changing benefits, all that kind of stuff are things that as a pay office you have to react to quickly. But your payroll software, if it's on-prem, may not typically allow you to do that easily. All right, so benefits of moving to the cloud. So firstly, improved experiences for all of your employees. So ease of access is typically, something that I see as a big benefit with things like single sign-on and access anywhere, something that's supported by tools like SuccessFactors. You've got better end-user engagement because of that. There's typically improved transparency because employees can see their data and understand where it is, and also sort of improved your employee collaboration because they can update their data themselves, they can maintain their information themselves without having to get approval offline and things like that. You can also obviously automate those processes. You've got more efficient HR and IT operations. Obviously, having a single global HR platform for all of your operations allows you to achieve economies of scale. Cloud native provides flexibility and simplicity as well. You've got less time organizing HR information and functions because typically a lot of these solutions provide out-of-the-box support. And then you've also got streamlined HR workflows that allows you to have faster onboarding and training of employees, more efficient management of talent as it's all integrated in one solution, and also having simplified support because you're effectively just working off one solution. And then lastly, you've got improved business agility and enablement. So improved business agility, allowing you to react quickly to change both within the business or asked for by the business, or also from a legal sort of legislation perspective. There is typically a faster time to adopt innovation when you are on cloud-based solutions, provides better insights into your business and from a data perspective, so it does improve decision making, and it also does avoid costs of on-premise hardware and associated support costs as well. All right, so what are the top 10 reasons that we're seeing for moving to the cloud from a core HR time and payroll perspective? So enhancing your workforce experience with AI is a big factor that we're seeing nowadays. So dual topic of choice, agentic AI as well. So a lot of that is all of it is really being innovated in the cloud. So moving your core HR time and payroll will allow you to access that. I've got a slide later on that gives us a flavor of some of the transactions that we're seeing being enabled via the AI. Improving your payroll accuracy, so real-time evaluation of time entry for continuous payroll. Making intelligent data-driven decisions, and again, that's really because you've got access to intelligent dashboards and reporting. Lower total cost of ownership, and that's again typically because it's not as expensive to implement, and it's typically maintained at a lower cost point. So that's something that we're seeing as a key value prop. Localization is delivered in a much more efficient manner, and legal compliance and regulatory changes are provided to us by the cloud vendor itself, which is a big benefit there. Again, you've got faster time to value and pace of innovation. You've got half yearly updates that are being released by SAP. Best practices, leading practices, and also partner-based accelerators being made available that can accelerate that sort of time to value as well. You've got your future workforce digital needs met, so things like mobile GPS-enabled timesheets being made available, automated payroll, tax calculations, things like that are really being provided out of the box from a cloud perspective, which is a huge benefit. You've got efficiency with harmonized processes. Again, one solution allows you to have intuitive data entry, approvals, and analytics all in one box. It does improve your organizational collaboration. So HR, employees, managers, time and payroll administrators, all collaborating and leveraging the same solution. And it does also simplify vendor relationships because you're effectively dealing with a much more simpler relationship and contact point. It's one provider as opposed to having to manage multiple vendors. And it does provide some commercial options and flexibility depending on the solution and the vendor that you end up rolling with. I wanted to just delve a bit more into sort of improving your payroll accuracy, right? So we've got real-time time evaluation with continuous payroll, and that's something that is key within the new Employee Central solution. So Payroll Control Center, which I've got a slide on next to kind of talk that through, is how you run payroll within SuccessFactors. It provides real-time evaluation of time entry, it provides continuous auditing of payroll throughout your entire pay period, and it does provide visibility in terms of your overall cost. So if we look at a more specific example of your Payroll Control Center, what you see on the screen here is a more traditional pay cycle where you've got your monthly payroll. You may have a couple of off cycles that you need to maintain, but you really get to the end of your payroll cutoff period, or the start of your payroll cutoff period, where you look to actually run your payroll, and you then look at running your audit activities, your reconciliation activities, and submitting your bank files and GL files and things like that. Now the problem with that is because you're waiting right the way till the end of the month or the pay period to be able to run your payroll, typically it is error prone because you have minimal time to actually reconcile your data. It's also very manual and labor intensive because you are running the payroll manually, and it's not real time. It doesn't provide you agility. And it does also increase stress due to sort of your increased integrated world. So if you think about self-services and the fact that users are typically out there changing their data, managers are requesting changes to data, in a more traditional payroll sense, you're waiting to that process to be able to verify all of those changes. And if there's any errors that have been introduced, it does become quite a high risk. So what SAP has introduced is the concept of Payroll Control Center, which provides a continuous payroll perspective. So you're not waiting to the end of the pay period to run your payroll. Effectively, on a daily basis, Payroll Control Center is continually running your payroll and auditing your payroll from a reconciliation perspective. And that's including your time and benefits data as well. When you get to your actual payroll cutoff date, yes, you do a finalized sort of payroll run, but the idea being because you've continually updated that or verified your payroll on a daily basis, the number of errors that you end up having to deal with or reconciliations that you have to deal with in that final pay run should be minimal. And what that typically will then lead to is improved data accuracy and payroll accuracy, reduced processing time, especially for the last pay run, less stress and concern, and also sort of increased focus on strategy because if you're focusing less on the transactional aspect of work, then really looking at the strategic element is where you focus your efforts. So Payroll Control Center is a huge benefit from a cloud perspective that we're super excited to leverage within our setups. Okay, let's have a look at AI, right? So 76% of HR leaders do believe that if their organization does not adopt and implement AI solutions such as generative AI in the next 12 to 24 months, they're going to be lagging in organizational success compared to those that do. So obviously it's a high topic of choice or a high topic of focus for our clients. and for users across the world. Now, SAP's solution to that is referred to as Joule, and the level of support and use case examples that have been released by SAP in the last sort of 12 months are phenomenal. Too much to actually fit on one slide. So I have tried to look at summarizing this across 3 broad stroke areas. So if we look at capabilities, so from a transactional perspective, it helps with facilitating direct completion of HR tasks, such as updating personal details, approving workflows, managing time offs, so on and so forth. It provides navigational support as well, especially with the adoption of or the inclusion of WalkMe that's just been embedded into the SAP SuccessFactors solution. We'll talk about that in a tick as well. And then, provides informational summarized insights from company-specific documents, HR policies, guidelines, sort of so on and so forth. From an enhancement perspective, some of the enhancements that have been provided include mobile app availability. So Joule is now fully functionally available via the SAP SuccessFactors mobile apps, including sort of voice command integration with Siri from an iOS perspective as well. I'll just turn that off because that set my Apple devices off. It does provide multi-language support. So extended language support, enabling international users to interact with Joule as well. It provides conversational experience, does have data center flexibility now, and does have the ability to use external document repositories such as SharePoint to provide accurate document-based responses as you're requesting information from it. So those are some of the enhancements that have been delivered. And if we look at some of the use cases specifically from a transactional, navigational, informational perspective, you can see you've got some great use cases there, like approving, creating compensation awards, managing employee records, promotions, transfers, so on and so forth. You've got direct links to time off management, org charts, performance management forms, and then also informational in terms of providing that quick access to your company HR policies, procedures, guidelines, so on and so forth as well. So those are some of the cool functionalities that have already been released. And the amazing concept with Joule is that it will continually become more relevant as SAP continues to innovate with the solution. Again, the key benefit of moving to the full cloud is being able to leverage it. Okay, so if we're looking at, we've looked at the benefits of the cloud. Now let's have a look at sort of what tools and solutions are going to help us with this move. Now, the way I like to look at this is there are really 3 types of implementation or deployment options. So the first is a greenfield approach. Now, that's where you're looking at a clean slate approach. You're starting from scratch. It's a complete re-engineering of your process workflows. You don't touch any of your previous customizations. It does allow companies to adopt best practice processes, which typically results in a lower TCO, but it does potentially take longer than other approaches. Data migration activities could also be lengthy, provide or result in higher risk or higher complexity, and some data may need to be archived rather than migrated because of the differences in the solutions. You've then got the brownfield approach, which is more akin to an upgrade of your existing environment rather than a fresh implementation. That does allow more of a migration type approach over to a newer version rather than a straight re-implementation. It allows an evaluation of existing processes and porting of ones that do work. And taking this approach does typically provide a quicker transformation time because you're leveraging a lot of your investment already, or a lot of your investment that's already been done already. It would really only work in certain situations when the current processes or workflows are compatible with the cloud, and it does retain your data in essence. And then you've got a hybrid approach, which really is the best of both worlds, and that's allows you to mitigate your risk. It does allow you to choose whether you want to redesign and re-engineer certain processes or where you want to retain your current processes. It's really the best approach for large enterprises with a lot of data and complex environments, but it does typically require a third-party tool to distill the pieces that you want to retain versus the ones that you want to re-engineer. So let's have a look at the tools that can be used for each approach here. So from a greenfield approach, typically you require a clean slate approach and associated tools for that. So in this situation, accelerators such as best practice or leading practice templates and processes for things like pre-configuration are used to enable that. And then you've also got the ability to use design and configuration tools such as SuccessFactors Codebot or SF Codebot that you then could use to simplify your design decisions, documentation, automation of configuration. The brownfield approach, this is, as it's essentially an upgrade approach, there are various tools that you can leverage, such as the SAP Info Porter tool to enable that. There are third-party tools such as the SpinFX IT Easy Migrate, Easy Go Live solution that can be leveraged to migrate both config and data. You've got also in this situation the ability to use the Codebot solution to effectively use that for design and configuration as well. And that's to design, to document the current environment and also align your future state as well. And then you've got the hybrid approach, and that's really looking at a mix of both tool sets. So accelerators plus Info Porter and potentially those third-party tools. And again, Codebot could be used to document your current environment and align your future state as well. Let's have a look at some of this in a bit more detail. So examples of an accelerator. So we've got a really cool solution that we refer to as the People Hub powered by SAP SuccessFactors or for SAP SuccessFactors solution. Now this is a typical accelerator in terms of the fact that it is based on the SAP SuccessFactors solution. It is in essence a global HCM platform that does unify all of your employee data and your processes in one solution. It's fully scalable, role-based, and it does provide a unified user experience for all of your users. So with a accelerator like People Hub, typically what you should get is a pre-configured solution out of the box for all of your processes, from sort of attract to hire to retire, including core HR and payroll. Leading practice processes, including swim lane documentation that do match the solution out of the box. The accelerators typically, so the People Hub solution is deployed using the Zalaris Activate methodology in an accelerated time frame. So depending on the module, we could actually roll it out anywhere between 8 to 16 weeks. And the solution can be bundled with one of our sort of subscription plans that can also include a bundled Zalaris Care Service or AMS as well. So that's an example of an accelerator, something that we've seen many of our clients use to adopt a solution out of the box and then adapt it over time. And that's something that I'd encourage everyone to have a look at. If we then look at sort of tool-based design or design, realize, deploy, maintain, this is really where SuccessFactors Codebot or SF Codebot comes into play. So it simplifies admin and accelerates your configuration, reducing both your project duration and cost. So if we look at things like from a design perspective, it allows you to define your requirements, fields, your objects, portlets, roles, groups, and collaborate with your team within an online workbook. From a implementation build phase perspective, it does allow automated configuration. So as you update your design, it will configure the system on the fly. You've also got the ability to then deploy that across multiple instances, from your development to test to prod in an automated fashion. And then once you're live, it reduces maintenance because you're leveraging that automated tool to make sure that your documentation's up to date and that the system is then also matching the documentation. Now, we embed SF CodeBot into our People Hub solution, for example. That's how we achieve some of our accelerated timeframes as well. Definitely a tool I would encourage everyone to have a look at. Some of the benefits, a bit more detail around it. So automatically generating your config workbooks from instances. So make sure that your documentation is always up to date. It does allow configuration updates directly from the workbook into the instance. So that eliminates coding and human error. It does allow you to migrate instances seamlessly and maintain best practice across your instances and implement them immediately. It does do some cool comparison, duplicate validation checks across workbooks, and that then also allows you to keep up with the releases and check in on sort of your strategic design on an ongoing basis. And lastly, it does provide robotic testing and role-based permissions. So again, making sure that sort of focus on quality as you've got updates being put through the system. So we typically see CodeBot providing sort of 30 to 50% efficiency on typical tasks. And again, there's that concept of consultants and admin can then focus on your strategy rather than the transactional element of an implementation. Okay, what about SAP provided tools? So SAP Info Porter, that's really the main tool set there. It's developed by SAP for migrating data from SAP HCM solutions to SuccessFactors Employee Central. It's typically used once you have aligned a to-be design and have built your Employee Central solution. So it assists with migration of employee master data and org data from your SAP ERP HCM to EC. And then once it's migrated, it does ensure that changes made in EC are replicated back to SAP ERP. And that's typically in your core hybrid setup. So how does it work? So from a prep perspective, it exports your data model from EC and imports that into ERP HCM, provides you the ability to then do value in field mapping, and then extracts your data from the HCM solution, including sort of your OM data. So there's a mapping table to prepare sort of the replication as well from EC back down. It uses a combination of data validation, web service calls, and generates and sort of imports your CSV files. And then the last part there really is once you've imported the data into EC using the SAP Info Porter, it prepares replication back down, again, setting up your sort of key mapping tables in essence. So again, standard SAP provided a solution that's part of your license. Some of the benefits of it. So as I mentioned, it is part of the EC license and it's delivered with prepackaged integrations free of charge. It does have built-in logic to handle simple and complex migration of HR transactions, such as your hired, retired, transferred, international assignees, global assignments, so on and so forth. It does reduce effort because the setup is typically done via config, not custom code. And there is sample content that is provided to help accelerate the implementation, and it also can support custom info types as well. It ensures that your personnel numbers or PERNA for your hardcore SAP config guys, that it's reused during replication and that historical data is correctly migrated. It does ensure correct hire dates in Employee Central, so any sort of calculations based on your hire date can be maintained. And it does allow for migration of terminated or withdrawn employees. The last element there is it also prevents overriding of info type data before your full transmission date or your actual cutover date itself. All right, but what about migrating your payroll data? So we've just spoken about HR data, but what about the payroll data itself? And that's really where we bring in tools like the SpinFX sort of easy upgrade and easy go live solutions. And these are an example of tools that can take the risk out of migrating your payroll. So Easy Upgrade will help clients identify and migrate payroll config, migrate your relevant employee information such as your payroll results and info type data, and then use inbuilt test reports to help validate that migration. Easy Go Live does perform the full migration of data itself. So if we look at the breakdown of steps here, step one, looking at copying your payroll config. And what that will allow you to do is choose what you want to move first. So that could include all of your payroll config, your info type setup, your time evaluation, payroll area configuration. It is quite flexible, so you can pick and choose what areas of your configuration you want to move, if not all of it. And then what Easy Upgrade will do is it will automatically detect relevant country configuration as well, and it provides the ability to map across various data points as well. It stores all of that configuration into a transport, and it does provide the ability to sort of do a preview before you have a live run, fully auditable, and it's all done without any ABAP code. Once you've copied your payroll config across, you can then copy your employees across. Now, again, this is payroll related data. So copying a subset of the employee data and payroll results for testing purposes is the first piece of that. It will scramble relevant PII data to enable secure testing, whilst recoding data to your new config values as well. And it does allow clients to be selective on what data will be migrated, because some data is going to actually be replicated from EC. You may not want to move all of your master data itself. And then really the last part there is then validating that payroll data. So with a number of pre-delivered reports provided as part of the solution, clients can easily check if the system is operating as expected. You can check your payroll results quickly, and it can connect automatically to the legacy system and highlight any differences in results immediately, right the way down to wage type level for ease of reconciliation as well. So it's a pretty cool tool that we would typically recommend. All right, what about change management challenges? So some of the things that we see when you're adopting the cloud obviously is resistance to change. There's typically a lot of challenges that people are seeing, and here's some of those challenges that we see. So firstly, your resistance to change. People just do not like change, especially in the business world. So, what can we do to help with that is something that we always ask ourselves. Some of the reasons as well that we see that resistance to change: lack of proper training. Sometimes it does result in increased workload for employees as well, especially when they have to maintain two systems during transition periods. Typically there's communication gaps. You can never over communicate, but obviously sometimes people don't read their emails, are busy doing their normal jobs and miss important updates, which also can typically result in user experience issues as well. You then may introduce data quality issues because if people aren't using the system correctly, if they're not, if they haven't been trained correctly, maybe you are introducing data quality issues into your world. And then you've also got sort of time constraints. Again, people are busy, with their day jobs, and having to deal with extra systems and new systems provides a level of frustration typically, or results in a level of frustration that also then typically results in lack of confidence, morale issues as employees are not sure what they are meant to be doing. So what is a potential answer to this is a solution called WalkMe. Now it's a digital adoption platform, and it really turns change management and training on its head. Now what we've got on the screen here is typically this is how people learn. We refer to this as the learning curve. So a lot of people basically the first time they are taught something, they only retain that for about 3 business days is typically the time frame. When you're taught something new, if you're not using it, if you're not leveraging it, you tend to then forget it. That then results in a need to retrain, and then typically what ends up happening is you move into the cycle of sort of space learning, and you're forgetting curve on an ongoing basis. So what solutions like WalkMe are effectively looking to remove is that expensive rework and non-productive time, and looking at sort of a productivity gain by basically bringing up your level of learning in an accelerated time frame and keeping that level of understanding constant on an ongoing basis. Now, if we look at an employee life cycle, and we look at what a tool like this can help from an employee life cycle perspective, if we look at sort of the current performance of an employee, we bring in a new system, or the employees are hired, new employees are brought in. Effectively, they're moving, they're losing information, straight away. And really, that's what we refer to, as the valley of death, and that results in costly one-on-one training. Now, if we look at, that training and bring them up to speed, leveraging that sort of more traditional sense, really we see that, there is a limit to what you can achieve without a tool like WalkMe. But if we then think about that continuous digital adoption mindset, we can leverage the solution at the onboarding and training phase. We can then encourage user adoption and stickiness. We can then leverage it to introduce new processes and then support and retrain as we change those processes on an ongoing basis, which is something that is typical in the cloud. And you'll then see that productivity gain to that sort of desired performance level. So something that we would encourage you to have a look at. SAP acquired them this year, and is a very, very now, if we bring this all together, we like to call this the Zalaris Move offering, and that's really where we're looking to leverage tools and minimize your risk and maintain that historical data on an ongoing basis. So using the SpinFX solution to migrate your payroll config and validate that into Employee Central Payroll, leveraging the SAP Info Porter solution to move your EC master data and create that sort of automated integration, a replication from EC back to ECP, leveraging the People Hub accelerated approach to bring leading practice and best practice solutions to the client, and using Cobot to continually manage that design and configuration management. And ultimately leveraging that sort of accelerated change management and training approach with WalkMe all-in-one solution. So this is something that we are working with a number of clients on currently, both across the brownfield and greenfield to kind of move to that bluefield type approach. Something I'm more than happy to have a more detailed conversation around if you're interested. Some of the benefits that we're seeing here, obviously, it is a faster time to production because you're not starting from scratch. It does allow you to leverage your existing investment. It provides you the ability to retain historical data and give you access to leading practice processes out of the box. It does bring that digital change management approach, with WalkMe embedded. And then it does allow that sort of automated design and configuration and ongoing maintenance as well in the solution. So hopefully, some of those key benefits are resonating with yourselves, and, please reach out if you'd like to look at this in a bit more detail. In the meantime, what can you do to prepare now? Right, so the first thing is SAP provides a readiness check tool, and that's a self-services tool that's made available to analyze your existing SAP ERP HCM implementation. It provides insights into key topics such as your implemented functionality, what degree of customization you currently have, things like the number of interfaces that you're currently running, and your existing data footprint. It provides some strategic data points for you to make informed decisions and as you look to plan for your move to the cloud. So things like employee insights, so distribution of master data by region, process, and status, your org structure analysis, HCM objects such as your payroll calendars and frequency, and also provide you custom code analysis to verify if that code is cloud compatible or not. So what can you do now to prepare? So firstly, identifying which version of SAP you are currently on to determine your exact end date of support. Run that readiness check, review your current processes, remove custom where you can, or at least identify what is non-essential so that you can inform that into your transition plan moving forward and your change management plans. Start to look at your data accuracy. So cleansing data at source is always easier than on the fly. So if you can do that, I'd encourage that. and then also start the transition plan or look at your business case as well, which is again something that we're more than happy to help with from a Zalaris Advisory Services perspective. So some Q&A, right? Let me see what people have submitted. All right, so the first question, if RISE or Private Cloud Edition is considered a cloud-based solution, isn't it then supported for as long as you have a subscription? So look, no, SAP have made it very clear as of this date that the only solution in their offering that will be supported past 2040 is Employee Central Payroll. They are also focusing their investment in innovation on that solution, including sort of further enhancing your dual support scenarios for payroll. All right, what's the next one here? You haven't mentioned the SuccessFactors next generation payroll solution as an option. So SAP's current country coverage for RISE or ECP is extensive. It offers over 50 countries. And that has taken decades to build, with new countries being added to the support list each release. Next Gen Payroll is really a ground up rebuild of payroll into the cloud, and at this stage only offers, I think from memory, UK and US. And it's also really been focused more on an SMB based solution approach. Look, over time that may change, but for now ECP is by far the solution of choice moving forward. Do I need to implement EC and ECP if I want to lead with talent-based modules whilst we upgrade our core to the cloud? In essence, no. You can implement SuccessFactors talent solutions ahead of core HR. However, there are some elements of functionality like your position management that would benefit modules like recruitment and career development or succession if you did adopt that core HR piece as well. All right, my config in my current on-prem solution is a mess. Would leveraging a tool such as this SpinFX Easy Migration tool, would that still be beneficial, or would taking a more traditional reimplementation approach make more sense? Look, it's a good question. I did touch base on that, but look, it really does depend on what your key drivers are from as a business. So the great thing about the tool set is that it will allow you to mix and match or use as much or as little of it as required to achieve the outcome. So we do have clients on both ends of the spectrum. For those who want to retain their current configuration or don't want to, we may stay still, we may potentially use the Easy Upgrade tool to migrate data across and Easy Validate to assist with parallel testing. But really, it is something that you can use as much or as little of it as will suit your current environment. All right, I think we've got time for one more question. ECP does not allow customization, so I would not be able to meet my current business requirements. Look, that's an interesting question. ECP does allow certain elements of the system to be customized, not that we encourage it. But it does allow you to do it as long as you're using SAP best practice methods such as baddies and user exits. However, I have found that most of the customization that sits in current on-prem systems is not replicated in ECP. Typically, it ends up in the EC side of your setup. And those customizations, in the on-premise world, are actually more covered by configuration in EC, via things like business rules and the MDF layer. As an example, I had a client once where we did an analysis of their on-prem design. They had over 140 custom objects that had all been justified by a business case. But when we compared that same design leveraging ECP as the base solution, we effectively reduced that down to, I think it was 43 custom objects, and most of those were integrations and reports, which again, a tool like SpinFX Easy Reporter would further reduce that 43 down. So ECP does allow a degree of flexibility that allows you to meet your business requirements. Okay, before we finish up, I just wanted to highlight a couple of great upcoming events. So we are going to be at Unleash in Paris from October 21st to 22nd. There are a couple of free tickets that we are giving away. So if you go to zalaris.com/events, you can enter your details to participate in that free giveaway. Also, my colleague Jesper Marup is hosting a demo of Employee Central Payroll. And in particular, our People Hub version of Employee Central Payroll. That's designed for HR execs, managers, payroll specialists, and IT specialists in HR who are involved in enhancing their payroll processes. That's on the 13th of May. Don't miss that session if you're interested in ECP. And again, if you go to zalaris.com/webinars, you'll also be able to look at some of the other on-demand webinars that we have available on our site. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. If you'd like to discuss any of this in more detail, please feel free to reach out. I am based in the Australian time zone, but very flexible in timing. So looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll speak soon, everyone. Thank you.